All right. Today we have Tampa Mayor Jane Castor in the house. Welcome to the TBD Podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's very exciting. I love the logo. That's awesome.
Well, it's very Tampa. We have the rooster, the cigar, the gates of Ybor City, and the whole thing was modeled on a cigar label. So I'm hoping to one day actually have our own cigars. Maybe we can work on that. I don't know. We'll see.
There you go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be.
I was talking to my dad yesterday, and he was a judge here in Hillsborough County for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And before he was a judge, he was a state attorney early on in his career. And he says he remembers you in the early 1980s, like 82, 83, I think he was
84.
in
I
office,
came on 84, right.
And he remembers you as a young sergeant, and he tried a couple of your cases. He says maybe DUI, traffic, something like that. I wanted to start the podcast there, though, and maybe even before that. First of all, you're from Tampa.
I am.
And what inspired you to get into law enforcement here as a woman? And I mean, back then, right? Probably a very rare thing to do.
It was. So I born and raised here, one of 5 kids. My parents migrated down from Indiana. And I grew up, during the Title IX that allowed young women to participate in sports the same level as young men. And so that's when I was in junior high school, when that was passed some 50-some years ago. And by virtue, as I always say, being 6 foot tall in the second grade and growing up around sports, we were always playing football, baseball, basketball, swimming. I was a pretty good athlete way back when. So I received a full athletic scholarship to the University of Tampa. And that was really the key that opened up all the doors for me throughout my life. But I majored in criminology, psychology, sociology, just very interested in the human behavior in criminology. And so I had aspirations to go on the federal level. Reagan was the president, put a freeze on federal hiring. And I had friends from University of Tampa that worked at the Tampa Police Department and said, you should come over here. You'd really like it. So not ever having done a ride along, knowing nothing about the Tampa Police Department, I tell people that I was blessed because there was never a day in 31 years that I didn't want to go to work. I absolutely love being a police officer. You're out there on the streets. There's no 2 calls that are the same. You get to help people every day. You're your own boss in essence. It's just very, very exciting. It was for me. Law enforcement's not for everyone. But if it is for you, you'll never work a day in your life. Oh, look at that. The big hair phase.
Sergeant. So how long does it take to go from officer to sergeant?
Well, for me, I made sergeant, 1996, right around there. So 12 years. It depends. I was a corporal for quite some time, but that's funny. All very, very good friends of mine.
Was this the only female officers in Tampa PD at the time?
No, we had a lot more than that. But it was unique. This was actually, we were the quad squad. That was the quick uniform attack on drugs. And that was during the heyday of the crack cocaine epidemic.
So what year are we talking here? Late 80s?
Actually, that's in the 90s.
Wow.
That's in the 90s there. And it was, oh boy, I tell you, that was one of the craziest times to be in law enforcement when crack just hit like a tidal wave in our country, right around the 90s, early 90s. And we had, there wasn't a day that went by that you didn't have some type of street corner shooting, something involving crack cocaine in neighborhoods across the city. But it really, not just the city of Tampa, it caught the nation.
Yeah.
And really went to the heart, especially in the African-American neighborhoods. You just saw families destroyed overnight. It was a very trying time. And that actually, for me in my career, that was the highest homicide rates that we would have were back in those days. I believe it was around 80 homicides in 1979. And I mean, 89, I'm sorry. And then when I was the chief of police, we had a low of 19 homicides in 1 year. And now you hate to say an average because each of those statistics is a human being, but we average in our city around 40 homicides a year. And just to put that into context, there are cities in our nation that having 200 homicides a year is a good year for them.
Yeah, I read something, I forgot the publication, but it said Tampa is one of the safest cities in the country.
Our size in the nation, and that's something that I am incredibly, incredibly proud of.
Wow. So you rise through the ranks. Sounds like you just purely loved your job.
I did.
Right.
But the unusual thing about law enforcement is you come in to be out on the street and to help people every day. And as you rise through the ranks, the less you get to do what you came there to do. Or as my kids so aptly described it in a Great American Teach-In, they said, my mom's not a real cop. She just sits behind a desk, or she's just the chief. They said, and she doesn't put bad guys in jail. She just sits behind a desk. So, as you rise up, I remember I would go down to the gym and work out in the police station. There'd be a lot of young officers in there, and they're all talking about, oh, we're doing a search warrant tomorrow. Oh, I made this arrest last night, or I saved somebody's life. And I'm like, wow, I got to go over the budget.
At what point does that shift? Is there like a lieutenant or something? That
yes, I would
more
say
administrative?
Sergeant is great. Corporal, detective's great. Yeah. Sergeant's great. There's nothing wrong with any of the positions. Right. You still bring value. But I would say really from lieutenant, captain, definitely major and above, you're the administration. As I like to say, you are they. When people say they decided, I said, you are they.
Not knocking down the doors and getting the bad guys.
Right.
Well, you stuck with it and then became the chief of police. What was that like? I mean, what a role to have in a city that you started in as a police officer. Kind of a rare thing, right? Don't police departments usually try to get talent from like Orlando, another city? Well,
you try to stay inside unless you need a change agent. You bring somebody in that is going to reshape the organization, and organizational change is the most difficult thing that you'll ever do. And anybody that's been involved in a process like that understands it, because like they say, people who indicate that they like change, I say they're either a liar or what they mean is change somebody else's world. Don't be changing mine. But it was incredible to be appointed as the chief of police, because law enforcement agencies are very flat. And so your ability we had, for 1,300 employees, we had 10 people on our staff. And so to be able to rise to that level, right place, right time sort of a thing. But when I was appointed chief at the time, I said that at the end of my tenure, I didn't want to be remembered as the first female chief. I wanted to be remembered as a good chief. But in saying that, it wasn't lost on me the responsibility of being the first woman in this position. Because if a male failed in that position, they would say, oh, such and such, he failed as an individual. If I failed, they'd say, I told you a woman couldn't do it. And then to be that example for, young women out in the community. I had a woman stop me at a breakfast years ago, and she said, I just have to tell you that my daughter saw you on television this morning. And she said, Mom, is that the chief of police? And she said, yes, it is. And her daughter said, wow, I can be anything I want to be. So those types of impacts that you can have and that level of responsibility, I took very seriously.
Yeah, what a weight to have on your shoulders, but also recognizing it, right? And kind of moving through it. And how long were you the police chief for?
6 years.
6 years. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Which it's kind of like the dog years. I think 6 years in a normal person's life and a chief's life are quite different.
Were you the chief when you were running for mayor? I don't remember.
No. So I retired in 2015.
15.
So I won't get too deep into this, but we have the deferred retirement option plan, the drop. And so you can get into that at 20 years. You have to leave at 30, and you can only stand for 5 years. So at 30 years, I had to retire, but you can keep the chief of police on contract. And so Mayor Buckhorn, I stayed to finish out his first term, and he wanted me to stay for the second, but I said it's time for.
Been a lot. Well, at that point, how many years were you with Tampa PD?
Yeah, 31 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you felt like, okay, let's let some other people come in here and run the show.
Yeah, get some of that young blood in there. And then I ran for mayor in 2019.
What inspired you to do that, run for mayor?
Actually, it was conversations with individuals like your grandfather, and then with Pam Iorio and Bob Buckhorn. And, the realization that our city was going to change more in this decade than it had in my entire life. And to be a part of that change was something that I saw as the honor of a lifetime. And I also have always felt that we had the right mayor at the right time in the history of our city. And so I think people will always say, what do you want your legacy to be? And I never think about those types of issues. But if at the end of my tenure, people can say that I was the right person at the right time, that would be certainly enough for me.
Totally. Did you have ideas going in? I want to fix this. I want to fix that. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? Right.
Well, one of the elements that I believe has benefited the city of Tampa from our elected officials is the continuation of those long-term plans and that vision for our city. And so we don't have someone that is out of office and a new person comes in and makes a hard left or a hard right or throws everything that's been accomplished out the window. And so to continue on the plans that had been put in motion from past mayors. And then for me, really looking at our infrastructure, the elements that had been ignored for so many years. And one of our first initiatives was our pipes program, $3 billion to replace our wastewater pipes that in many cases hadn't been touched in 80 to 100 years. So we respond to, for example, water main breaks to the tune of multiple millions of dollars a year. And so we have that in motion, and we're making great progress. And I always laugh about Mayor Pam Iorio, and she'll say, why nobody paid attention to the infrastructure? And I'm like, why? She goes, you never see a ribbon cutting for new sewer pipes.
Right.
I'm like, well, we're doing it. So I may be remembered as the wastewater mayor, but that's okay too.
Well, it's not sexy, right? It's not the new building. It's certainly not a river walk. You can't even really see it. I mean, if anything, it impacts your commute to work. It's kind of annoying, frankly. The roads are all closed down. So who would get excited about it? But for people that are new here, if you've moved here since Water Street or in the last few years, there is a lot of infrastructure work going on. Tampa was a rundown place. It really was. That's just the fact. I mean, when I was growing up in the 90s, every street was torn up. Right. Flooding was way worse than it is today. You're kind of right. We needed someone to come in and almost go backwards in time and fix what should have been done. Right. A lot of that stuff should have been done decades ago.
Right.
And it was
exactly.
And you know what? Maybe it's not the fault of a particular mayor or a council or whatever. Maybe the money wasn't there. We didn't have enough growth. I don't really know how that would all work. But maybe it wasn't able to be done. And now, because of this growth, we have over here on the wall most of the new development projects in our urban core. Look at the scale of that, right? That didn't happen in any other decade.
Right.
Maybe it was that growth that allowed you to have the funding or the credit or whatever, to be able to accomplish those projects.
Right. And then to say that, as we continue to build on Tampa's success, it has to be built on a strong foundation. And we are so fortunate. You can look historically where a plot of land came open and somebody put a high rise in. We are creating entire neighborhoods all over the city of Tampa. If you go all the way west to West Shore, what's happening and being reimagined down there by Andrew Wright and others, you come to Midtown, which has far exceeded their expectations. They're into phase 2. reimagination of West Tampa, everything that's going on there. We're on our 9th or 10th tower in the West River projects, and more to come with Rome Yard. The West River Walk is getting ready to break ground on that. That's going to be amazing, should be finished in 2026. Bob Buckhorn has clearly his fingerprints on a lot of this, but you have to credit him with building a dynamic urban core in downtown. And every successful city has to have that. Tampa Heights, Water Street, Channel Side, what Daryl's going to do in Ybor City, it's just nothing short of amazing.
That's the perfect word for it, amazing. And I always felt a long time coming, too. I always believed in our little urban core. And if you look at old pictures of Tampa, we had an incredible walkable downtown. Ybor City was 5 times the size it was today. We kind of went backwards over through urban renewal and a lot of the period of time in the late mid-century. I mean, a lot of Tampa was torn apart and torn down. Right. We lost a lot of historic buildings, all that sort of stuff. So to see this renaissance as someone who's from here and looking at the scale of the things that are happening, not only the scale, but the quality. Like that's what I tell people too. It's not like there's a bunch of these old fat rich developers from New York coming here trying to make a buck. No, like a lot of the people that are investing an incredible amount of money in Tampa give a shit. You know what I mean? They really care. They're creating these communities with quality materials. Architects that are building stuff in like Barcelona are working on projects in Tampa, Florida. Right. Amazing.
It really is. It's incredible. And that I couldn't agree more that we have so many developers here that their heart and soul is in this community, and it makes a difference. I mean, look at Daryl Shaw and what he's going to do in Ybor City, what Jeff Vinnick has done for the city of Tampa. I mean, he's got to be, if not on the top of the list of individuals that have just lit Tampa on fire. He's not only is his heart and soul in this community, he is just an incredible individual. And even George Perez with the Related Group, they do everything from affordable housing all the way up to luxury condominiums and structures. And he told me that he has done development all over the world, and he's never seen the potential and possibility that he sees in Tampa.
That's awesome.
And it really is.
And, again, kind of back to that tax basis and all this growth, it's going to provide our city with a lot of great new things, from infrastructure to parks to better roadways, bigger budget for our fire and police. Like, it's a good thing. Yes. And people that are frustrated with the increased level of traffic and the growth and this road's closed and that road's closed, understand on the other side of it is something better for all of us. Right. Like, it's not just something better for that particular developer. It's a more beautiful community for all of us to enjoy.
Without a doubt.
What do you say to that rhetoric? It seems like it's really not prevalent. I would say a majority of people love it and are excited about the change. But what do you think about those arguments?
Well, one, I take those to heart. And we listen to that and we look for innovative solutions. If we go back to that pipes plan, you talk about water, wastewater pipes. Historically, you had to dig up everybody's front yards. You had to dig up the intersections. Now what we can do, we have the pipe bursting for the water replacement of water pipes. And so you hook everyone's house up to fire hydrants so you don't interrupt their water source. And then you go through with this machine that bursts the pipes and pulls a new pipe right behind it. And then,
so you're not digging up the earth?
You're not digging up anything, and you're replacing literally blocks of water pipes in a day or two.
Whoa.
And then with wastewater pipes, instead of digging those up, they have a fiberglass pipe lining that they do. They put the liner in, cure it with pressurized hot water, put a robot in there to cut out the access for homes and businesses, and no harm, no foul there either.
That's incredible.
We do look at ways that we can do things less invasively.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, if you're doing a stormwater project and you have an 8 to 10 foot intersection that you have to put down in the ground, you've got to dig a big hole for that. So we hear it and we try to be as least invasive as we possibly can, and least disruptive. But it really, we hear what people are saying, but the transportation is the biggest issue. If you look at development anywhere in the world, historically, the two areas that lag behind are transportation and schools. And so with transportation, it costs so much, those projects take so long, and you have to wait for the funding. It really was a knee blast for our community to lose the all for transportation. Very few things that, I don't let just roll off my back. But that loss of all for transportation was, especially when the majority of our voters voted for that. And we brought $500 million in no time. And I look at other counties that have that funding around the state, and they're running out of projects to put in place. But that hasn't stopped us. We are moving along with other solutions to transportation, but those solutions do take a great deal of time. And you don't only have to put the solution in place, you have to change the culture too, because I say mass transit in Tampa is more than two people in an SUV. People, and when they want mass transit, what most people really mean is I want those other people off of the road so they're not in my way.
Yeah, I put something up on my Instagram about the trolley system and how it's incredible. They're breaking ridership records year after year. You drive by that thing, it's packed. It's more popular than ever. And someone said, well, only tourists use that. And I'm like, dude, those are people that are not on the roadway. That is the whole idea. The idea is get people in a form of transportation that pulls them off of the road. That could include our little cool scooter program we've got downtown. It includes all of that. It's not just car versus train. It's an all-encompassing approach to transit. I do hear that a lot, though. Trains and people are very passionate about some sort of a mass transit system.
And I must say that dude was completely wrong. It used to be just for tourists, but it is a mode of transportation now. And, you look at individuals that are living in Ybor City that can work in Water Street downtown. We are putting the RFP out for the streetcar extension that will go north on Florida to Palm, down to Tampa Heights, and then back south on Tampa. And so we'll be able to connect all those neighborhoods as well.
Could you pull up, just Google, Tyler, maybe RFP funding, streetcar, Tampa? Do you mind explaining, what is the process? Everyone wants the streetcar extended. It's so popular. People love it. This is an old map we put up. Look at how extensive our map was. This is from, what is it, Tyler? 1915. I mean, my grandfather told me he took a car from Seminole Heights down to Ballast Point to go to the park. How awesome would that be if we could somehow figure out a way to bring that back? Not in the same capacity. These are old rickety, wooden streetcars, some more modern system. But I believe my generation, people even older than me, they want this type of urban living that's convenient, that has an adequate transportation system, all kind of encompassed in one urban area. The suburban days, I believe, are over for a majority of younger people. And a lot of younger people moving to Tampa come from other areas around the country with extensive transportation networks. We have a lot of kids coming and staying that, UT, all those kids used to go back up to the Northeast. Now they're all staying in Tampa, and they kind of have that more urban living mindset. I would love to bring this back. But my question was, what is the path? What do we need to do to get the streetcar extended? You mentioned the first step is the RFP.
We're on that. We're moving along with that. But to your point of having our entire city connected historically with the streetcar, I always think about the individual or individuals that were standing out by those streetcars, the advent of the motor vehicles that said, we need to get rid of these streetcars. This is ridiculous.
I know.
But I just went to Switzerland with a group of mayors some months back, and the streetcars, the bus system, the trains. It's just incredible. And I am holding out my hope that it is the younger generation that's moving here with no car and no intention of getting one that will change that culture, change that mindset. But the way that the process works, so you put out the RFP, you have the design phase, which I say when I come back in another life, I'm going to come as a planner because we have so many plans that nothing has been done with. But, to be able to plan that, to do the environmental, that takes quite some time as well. And then to be able to fund it, we have to look at what the funding mechanism is going to look like. Then once you do the funding, you have it built, then you have to look at the operation and maintenance because no system ever pays for itself.
Right.
I mean, some of the expressways, maybe, but the streetcar needs to remain free in order to be viable.
Do you believe it would be used if the cost was increased dramatically? Do you think if it was $5 a ride, people would use it?
No, I don't think that people would use it. And, now you look at it as a mode of transportation. Even individuals that can now, if they work downtown, they can park in Ybor City where it's much cheaper and then take the streetcar down to their place of employment. But I look at Kansas City. I've been out to Kansas City. They have a great mayor out there, Quentin Lucas, and their entire city is connected through streetcars. But they are a county city incorporated, and so they can pass sales tax on their own, and that's what they fund their streetcar expansions with.
Would All for Transportation, would that be the source of revenue to pay for an extension like the trolley system here in Tampa?
Oh, without a doubt.
So that would have been the funding that we need to do this.
We could have used that for transportation.
Oh, that's extra frustrating. So without that, where would the funding come from? Is that a future conversation after the planning?
Well, there are a number of different methods for paying for the operation and maintenance. You can look at a surtax for a certain geographic area that would be served by the streetcar. That's the way the majority of municipalities and counties address their mass transit.
It all comes down to the money, doesn't it? How do we pay for all of these things? It sounds like that's the issue to work through as the mayor. You kind of have to figure out how do you get it all done.
We don't lack for great ideas, that's for sure.
Right.
It always comes down to how are you going to pay for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and how to not put too much of a burden on the people
on future generations.
Right.
But then also to say that we've had pushback on some of our projects and about bonding those, but I look at it as from one angle as an issue of fairness as well. Like, why should this particular generation pay for the entire West River Walk or recreation center or the city center that we've built when it's going to be used by generation after generation? And you can't save up. A lot of people, well, why don't you save up for these large projects? Can you imagine if you saved up for a project that was going to cost $30-40 million? By the time you save that up, the project's going to be triple the price.
Right. The argument of not paying for future generations is logical. However, can you imagine if every generation had that mindset? We wouldn't have anything.
You wouldn't have anything.
So that's kind of the double-edged sword there. I get the grievances. And then you have people in the county too that, if you live on 10 acres out in Ruskin, you're probably not excited about a trolley system you might never use. So you kind of have that conversation to have too.
And that's an issue too, is that only the county can put sales tax initiatives onto the ballot. And so the city has always voted historically for transportation solutions, and it's the county that has voted those down. Now, with All for Transportation, the county, with the development that they're seeing in South County, they voted for it as well, and that's why it passed overwhelmingly.
Is that a state law? What's the reason that's true?
That's the state. It's based on
law.
the state. And if you look at, and it may be other states, it may be something, I don't know the answer to that's prevalent nationwide, but Jacksonville is city county incorporated, and so they have the ability to pass their sales tax initiatives as well.
You ever thought about that? I mean, proposing something like that?
That is, at this juncture, would be a nightmare. There are other cities that have gone through that in the recent past. Indianapolis is one, and combining city, county government. Same thing with Nashville. Nashville is city, county. And doing that in this particular time frame is very, very difficult.
Because there's a lot happening, a lot of growth.
It's just that, the cities have grown dramatically, and then you have to, to meld those two governments.
Right.
It comes with a lot of, I can't a lot of details.
Well, is there, and we can move on after this, but is there a conversation with the state government your office is having saying, our hands are kind of tied? We would love to tax ourselves for transportation. The whole city talks about transportation. We want a better transit plan. We want to do these projects, but we can't because of these rules you're talking about. Is there a conversation with the governor's office or the state of Florida trying to figure out a way around that?
No, there isn't, because the state legislature is really focused on the dilution of the home rule, sort of taking the power away from cities and counties and putting that into the state's hands. And you see that in a lot of the proposed legislation. And one of the things that I really commend Governor DeSantis for in the pandemic is that he allowed the diverse municipalities and counties to address the pandemic as they saw fit. Because if you look up in the Panhandle, their needs, the impact of the pandemic, those types of things, balancing the public health with the business interest, making sure that you were able to keep your businesses afloat while you kept your community safe. That equation looked different in different geographic areas of Florida. And so I think that we really came through the pandemic successfully because we were able to address our individual needs.
That balance is incredibly important. And we can, back to city and county government combining and this issue too, it's nice to look at other municipalities and say, hey, we don't want to do it that way. Right. And other states at that time during COVID shut down completely, whether you were a small town with a couple restaurants or a big city. That's just wrong. I mean, you definitely have to have that balance. Kudos to him. I think that was the right call. The community investment tax, there's a lot of talk about it right now. What exactly is it?
The community investment tax is something that is critical to the future success, not only of the city of Tampa, but Temple Terrace and Plant City and Hillsborough County. Those three cities are within Hillsborough County. So this tax was passed back almost 30 years ago now. It will expire in 2026. And so the first time it went through, it incorporated the things that you would think, paying for some transportation solutions, public safety, parks and recreation, those types of things. It was voted down when the football stadium, Raymond James Stadium, was included. It passed the second go-round, which is actually very interesting because now that it's up for renewal, nobody wants a sports stadium. They don't want to fund a new sports stadium out of that community investment tax. So people's thoughts have changed since the initial passing of it, but it is a half-penny sales tax, of which an estimated 20% or more is paid by individuals outside of Hillsborough County. So that's through tourist tax, people visiting our city, workers coming in, or our county. So, I call that free money. But the estimated, it is going on the ballot 2024 this November. It has got to pass because the needs aren't going away. So they've got to be funded in some manner. And if this community investment tax was not renewed, the approximate $800 million that the city of Tampa is going to recognize from this half-penny sales tax over the next 15 years would have to come from somewhere. So that means a raise in property taxes. That's got to come from somewhere. And what is funded by this is our public safety vehicles, our police, our fire, also renovations to our fire stations, to our police districts and headquarters. Transportation, we've put a lot more in this 15-year CIT for transportation than we had in the past CIT. And then our parks and recreation as well. So, and we have contractual mandates to pay for the maintenance of Raymond James and Amalie Arena. So that is contractual. So if this CIT didn't pass, we still have to come up with that money that we are contractually obligated to pay for the maintenance of those two facilities.
Go one slide up, Tyler. So this was not, so this is the current 96 to 2024. This is what has been paid for the current CIT. To me, looking at these where the funding is going, right? Art, stormwater, transportation, public safety, sounds non-negotiable. I mean, we need these services. We can't live without them. If the money comes from somewhere else, I mean, where would it come from? Can you talk about that? Like, what would we do?
We would have to have another source for that.
We have to create another tax.
There's no way that we can cut the budget to accommodate these costs.
I mean, it's not a small number
happen.
At all. We're talking about a lot of funding for for
approximately $800 million over the next 15 years for the city, just for the city of Tampa. That's not Hillsborough County, Plant City, or Temple Terrace.
Now, is it an increase in tax? Is it the same level of tax? What's the difference between the old CIT and the renewal?
It's exactly the same in the amount. It's a half-penny sales tax, so it would just be a continuation of that. The original one was for 30 years. This one will be for 15 years. And then the differences for us is just that particular pie. We've taken some of the elements off of it. We basically, as you saw from the other pie chart that's on there, it's broken down into public safety vehicles, transportation, and transportation is just for the maintenance of our paving and our roadways. There won't be any transportation systems in that funding. Public safety facilities, that's mainly for our fire stations that haven't been addressed in 50, 60 years in some cases. And then our parks and recreation facilities. We have 193 parks in the city of Tampa. 193. It's amazing. That's
amazing.
What our community wants.
And it's a lot to take care of, too.
It is a lot to take care of. And then, as I said, our contractual obligations for Raymond James Stadium and Amalie Arena. And we do a public community values survey every single year since our administration has been in office. And every year the needs are always consistent and consistently ranked. Transportation is always up there. Parks and recreation is always up there. Public safety those types of quality of life issues that people want addressed in our city.
Since having a baby, my family uses it almost every day. My wife takes the baby to Ballast Point Park
It's awesome park.
And all these parks around the city. When we used to live in Channelside, Madison Street Park, I mean, what would we be without our parks
That's true.
and all the stuff on this pie chart? So is it these different organizations coming together? Like fire department says, hey, this is kind of what our needs are. PD, hey, this is what we need. And you formulate this pie chart. Like, how do you know exactly what should go where?
That's how we do it, is just through the years,
Outreach.
Right. And we have our facilities, for example, all of our maintenance. We have our facilities maintenance, and they go through each of the public safety fire stations, our police headquarters. We need new police headquarters, the one downtown.
It's old.
That's
real
beyond old.
Kind of iconic, though. I love it. I
Right.
love the downtown urban core.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not going to be there long. When somebody buys that particular parcel, that will be the first thing they do is take that building out.
Are they going to move to the city center, Hannah?
No. We have to build a headquarters for police and fire, and so that's something we have to look at. We need a new facility for our fire maintenance and our fire facilities, their storage. They need a new building as well. Our police department needs a new evidence forfeiture impound. So we have a lot of needs in our city. When you look at transportation, our mobility department has every single street in the city graded. And, as to what level of maintenance that they need. And what happens with roadways is when you let them go too long, you can't just repave them. You have to tear it up and rebuild them. And you can imagine what that cost is. A couple of steps that we've taken, one within the mobility department, is we've put 2 pavement crews. We've actually hired additional city employees, purchased the equipment, and we have 2 paving crews that go out and pave roads in our city every day of the week. And we can do those jobs in a fraction of the time for a fraction of the cost. And so we're not contracting those jobs out. So we're getting them done much, much quicker. Same thing with our water department. We put a group together there, and they go out and fix these smaller projects really quickly, saving us time and money.
Yeah.
Our mobility department's also doing a lot of these quick builds where you see our bike lanes that are Cass Street is the perfect example. Our team built those segregated bike lanes along Cass Street within a week.
That's wild.
It is.
Right here on Cleveland, there was a project.
Our city did that too, the quick build. And we did that in collaboration with Thea, with the expressway, because if you've ever gotten off at that Willow Street exit, you're taking your life into your hands right
dicey.
there, right? So they changed that intersection, made it much safer.
So it sounds like technology and efficiency has played a huge role. Like you mentioned, I mean, the tech where you could go underground and literally essentially redo an old pipe that's been there for 80 years and make it new. How long would that last? Another 30, 50 years?
Oh, yes.
I mean, it almost sounds like more than money, the efficiency and the new technology coming out plays just as much of a role as how much money can we get. I mean, in kind of a way, maybe things always seem to go up with inflation, but I'd imagine you're saving money, especially when you consider economic factors. If you don't have to tear up a street and you can keep traffic going, logistics moving, trucks moving, sounds like you're kind of saving money that way through technology, through advancement.
Right. That is so true. And we are always looking for technological solutions to issues that we face each and every day.
Yeah.
And not just technological, but innovative as well. One of and I'll talk about a few of them, but I could talk all day on this. One is suspended ionization 6 project for treating our water. We have a permit to pull 82 million gallons of water out of the Hillsborough River every day. We pull that out, turn it into some of the best drinking water in the nation, and we supply the entire city of Tampa and a third of Hillsborough County with drinking water. Now, a lot goes into the treatment of that water, and we sent a group over to the Netherlands, and they looked at the suspended ionization, and it's a patented resin that attracts these contaminants from the water, and it can be cleaned and then reused. And one of the contaminants that it can attract is these PFAS and PFOA, these minute plastic particles that you hear about all the time.
Yes.
So utilizing this particular initiative, we will be able to cut down to the tune of millions of dollars a year in the chemicals that we use to treat our water. And we're the first water department in the nation to pilot this technology. And then we are in the process of building a facility to treat our water in that way. So we've had people from around the world come and look at our pilot and then look at the particular project that we're building. Another way with technology, let's look at the advent of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the two areas that we can really use that in the city is purchasing and our permitting, because they can go over those permit applications that have a great deal of similarity or consistency.
Right.
And the same thing in purchasing with contracts. They can review those contracts and save a great deal of time and effort on our team's part, get those through much more quickly, and we'll be able to, again, serve our growing community. That's one of the areas that has been very difficult, is keeping up with the permit applications. When you look at all the development, not just from these huge developments, high rises, but all the way down to home renovations,
Right.
things that our residents are doing to improve their homes and their businesses as well.
On the technology portion of it, and these things that have to do with efficiency and AI and all that, I mean, are you telling your team, hey, travel around the world, let me know what conferences there are? It seems like there's so much new technology out there.
There is.
Like, I had Joe Lopano on, the CEO of the Tampa International Airport, and he showed me these incredible drone air taxis
Yes.
that I think are going to be used at the Paris Olympics, but, you know, one day will probably find their way to Tampa and a lot of other cities. Some of this technology will completely change the way not only we get around, but small stuff under the roads, like we talked about too. Is that something you're like very much focused on, is new tech?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And some of the ways that we go about it, one, with the air taxis, those companies, I can't tell you how many presentations I've had on air taxis. They're
Really?
very interested in Florida because the geographic layout to go Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, down Fort Lauderdale, Miami. But that's something that will come. This technology is just going to come so fast and furiously. So we do that. We look for best practices around the United States. We happen to be a Bloomberg city, which Bloomberg, Harvard, they have helped us in so many ways. They send down the subject matter experts from around the nation in transportation, communications, affordable housing, you name it. They have helped us look for those best practices, because you want to ensure that, you're not traveling down the wrong road, that when you make these decisions, these technologies are not cheap, and it takes a great deal of time to successfully implement them.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you're making the best decision for your community.
Being at the forefront of anything is dangerous in a way.
Right.
'Cause what if it doesn't work? What if it's a waste of money? What if it causes negative externalities you didn't plan for?
Right.
But I feel like it would be a really good call to focus on that. I mean, some of the new technology, like Greg Slater was on the show talking about how AI can track let's say Taylor Swift is having a concert in Tampa. Well, AI can track those ticket sales, know when it's coming to Tampa, and adjust traffic signals accordingly to make sure the flow of traffic is more efficient. Genius, right? And that doesn't take any, probably expensive, but it doesn't take this crazy amount of people and logistics to get it done. It sounds like it's a simple software thing. I say simple, but it's probably more complicated than that.
Complicated for me. And then when we look at just getting down to our local entrepreneurial ecosystem, we are so fortunate to have, the Wave and Embark and just so many other groups. I think the difference between Tampa and other cities around the nation is the way that our innovation hubs and our entrepreneurs ecosystem works together, that it's so collaborative. And one of the things that we did pre-pandemic, and we're looking at doing it again, was to come up with some of the issues that the city needed solutions, technical solutions for. And then we invited a lot of these entrepreneurs in to pitch their technologies. And I went in just to welcome them all. 4 hours later, I was knee deep in it. It was amazing, some of the solutions that these groups have come up with. And so that's one of the areas that we focus on for business attraction is, innovation, making sure that we are seen as a very innovative community that, that embraces these new ideas, these new technologies. And we're very fortunate to have a very robust and diverse economic portfolio. If you looked at the pandemic, it brought some cities to their knees because they were focused in one particular area. And for us, we've got one of the best ports in the nation. We definitely have the best airport in the nation. And then you look at health sciences, you look at technology, you look at anything, any manufacturing, you name an area, cybersecurity, you name an area, and we are leading in the country. And just to have that diversity serves our community very well.
It's fantastic to have all that. And keeping up with it too, infrastructure-wise, everything we talked about in the CIT, all those programs, you don't have those programs, you're not going to have the businesses come here. You're not going to have those entrepreneurs come here. They're going to come here and they're going to go, the roads are crappy, the schools are all messed up, right? PD can't handle crime if there is any, right? That's going to be a major, major issue for attracting the talent we're talking about if we don't pay for some of those basic level systems.
And that's another thing, just along that thread, people will say, you're in competition with Miami. And I say that's not the case. Miami and Tampa are completely different. Miami is more of the fast-paced 24/7, and Tampa is the place you want to come and raise a family and be a part of the community. And the corporations, the businesses that we recruit to our city and our region are the ones that they have, their teams are young, but they're at that age where they're starting families and they want to be in a location that is safe, that has that sense of community. The second that they arrive here, they feel like they're a part of the city. The words that people use to describe Tampa most often to me are welcoming, friendly, and safe. And that's where people want to be. They want to be in a community like that. And I think that describes Tampa. And so if we have strong school educational system, we are, as you said, one of the safest cities in the nation our size, and you have those quality of life amenities, the parks and recreation, you have the transportation system. Those are the things that people want in a community and that they're attracted to.
What is the city of Tampa, right, from a government perspective? What is the city's job to the people that live here? Providing that level of service? Providing
the services that our city wants and deserves, and providing them in such a stellar fashion that they take them for granted.
Yeah.
Like you never think twice. You roll those cans out to the curb and you know they are being picked up and you know exactly what time they're going to be picked up.
I screwed up the holiday chart one day, but that was my bad. That was my bad. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that efficiency is so important, because how frustrating is it? I mean, we've probably all dealt with stuff in private business where you pay for something and you don't receive whatever expectation you had. And for the government to not provide whatever expectations the citizens have, it's not good. It's not good for anyone.
Yep. So that's, to provide those services, people take for granted that our city is so safe. People take for granted all of the services that we provide. When you turn on the faucet in the morning, when you wake up and that wonderful clean water comes out, you don't know how many hundreds of people are standing behind that to make sure that it's there for you every day without a thought on your part.
And the effort to improve. You talked about going over to the Netherlands and learning about this resin technology. Improvement. Is there anything that's perfect? Is there always room for improvement?
No, there is always room for improvement. So when we first came into office, we focused on those issues that were important to our community. And 3 of those are really interwoven, in my opinion, and that is housing affordability, transportation, and workforce development. And if you look at it, if we can provide transportation solutions for our residents, then you take that second largest slice of the budget pie off of their plate, and that is their car maintenance, insurance. And then also, if we can provide those high-skilled, high-paying jobs, then you can afford more towards your mortgage or your rent. And then lastly, the sustainability and resilience. Making sure that we're prepared for the future, that we're looking at climate change and all of the effects of that on our community, that we're looking at energy solutions to reduce our carbon footprint, like solar power, electric vehicles, those types of solutions that we can easily implement.
The incredible waste to energy facility. I was so surprised to know we are only one of 2 cities in the nation that actually own and operate our waste to energy facility. Spokane, Washington, right, is the other one.
That is.
How incredible here in Tampa. And by the way, what a genius idea. Why not burn the trash and turn it into electricity?
And then sell that electricity for millions of dollars.
So is that how it works? So we actually take the energy as a city and sell it to what? TECO buys it, or how does that work?
No, not TECO. It's a electric co-op that purchase it from us. But we're working with TECO on some solutions too. For example, our wastewater treatment that produces methane gas. That too can be turned into electricity. And so we're looking at long-term solutions for that as well.
I feel like you've talked about so much of small little fixes. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like, some of these efficiencies can be done internally, like the methane gas. Let's use that. That's a source. The trash, let's burn it. Let's sell the electricity. Millions of dollars, really? I mean, how much does that produce for the city of Tampa?
I know. It really is incredible. But our solid waste, so just a very quick 101 on city government, we have our operational budget, but then we have our enterprise groups, and that's our water, wastewater, parking. All of those groups have to support themselves. They're almost like a business. And so when you get your utility bill every month, you've got your water on there, you've got your trash pickup, solid waste, all of those fees are on there. And so that's what provides the funding for those enterprise groups. So when they sell that electricity for millions of dollars, that goes back into their enterprise funds,
reducing
and
the
keeps
cost for
your
the
bills lower.
Right. So that's the idea. It kind of helps
keep
all
the
of us
bills
out.
low.
Do you think there's a point, whether it's and I know we just went through a huge renovation over there, right? How much was that project?
It was about $120 million.
But I had on the waste management department here, and they were talking about that project, and they said it's a complete game changer. That facility is pretty old.
It is very old, and it was incredible, because we can't, if that is shut down, we have to transport all of our waste to landfill miles away from here, and that costs us. Matter of fact, during that renovation, that has been multiple millions of dollars for bypassing that trash. And so it was imperative that we did these renovations simultaneously and that nothing went wrong.
Right.
And there were literally over 400 contractors on any given day out there at the Waste to Energy working on 5 or 6 major projects, any one of which, if something had gone south, would have been catastrophic. And
but it all worked
they
out.
did an amazing job.
Yeah, that's
Amazing.
incredible. Do you think that with some of these technologies, burning our garbage and selling the energy that it creates, could we get our bills even lower than they are? I mean, the nature of everything, it just seems like everything goes up and up. Do you think there's a point in time where we can reduce it?
There may be. Our bills right now are lower than surrounding jurisdictions. So we do everything that we can to keep those bills, those monthly bills, as low as they can be. One of the areas that I'm looking at is, instead of doing these rate increases, is to have to project out what your costs are going to be and then incrementally raise these costs. Because, for example, I raised the parking fees, and you would have thought that I had, taken the life of several small children. The way some people talked, our parking fees had not been raised in over 30 years. And so our parking, which is an enterprise group, is supposed to run like a business, run in the black, had been running in the red for quite some time, to the point that we had to subsidize them as a city to the tune of $11 million. And so by raising these parking rates, we're able to get back in the black, and they're able to do a lot of the long-term deferred maintenance on the parking garages. And so those are the types of things that, if you don't raise something for 30 years and then you raise it, you have all kinds of public pushback. So if it could be that smaller incremental changes, and always being transparent about it, that if those costs do go down, then you could lower those bills. But for example, with our budget this year, our finance team always very conservatively estimates what we're going to bring in from property taxes, and that is our largest funding source for the budget. Property tax. And so they estimated an increase of about $26 million, and it was $20 million for our $1.8 billion budget. And so what we had seen in increases in our cost for not only services but supplies has been around 40%. So this year it's basically a wash. What we brought in from property taxes this year will only cover the increase in our cost of services and supplies.
Do you think that'll dramatically shift as some of these huge development progress?
I don't know that there's going to be a dramatic shift. Last year, we saw a substantial increase in property taxes because of the rise in the housing prices. Now, those have stabilized and they'll go down some, but people just aren't moving with the way the interest rates are right now. But we're looking at 2 and possibly 3 cuts in interest rates. That's estimated. I clearly don't have anything to do with the interest rate, but that's really going to ignite the real estate business. And you've seen it.
For sure.
You've seen all of these for sale signs popping up around the city.
It's not just interest rates. The insurance is a total crisis here in Florida. I mean, this little building we're in was over $6,000. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of crazy. That's a big effect too, is the interest rates.
And that's something that I think on the state level that should be focused on.
For sure.
Things that are important to Florida residents are not only our homeowners insurance, but car insurance. I mean, those are issues that are just killing people.
They are killing people because it's in combination with these other things we're talking about. Rising housing costs, financing is very expensive, interest rates are high. How does that affect the city? Does the city borrow money to do projects?
Yes, we bond. We don't borrow. We bond, which is in essence borrowing, but we have And that's another element too, that in our budget, we keep our reserves at 23%. We're mandated at 19. And so myself and other mayors have taken criticism for having that additional revenue in our reserves, but it affects our bond ratings. And we have some of the best bond ratings of any municipality in the nation. And what that translates into is better interest rates on the bonds that we take out. So we can save millions of dollars a year in our interest payments by having a very, very robust reserve account.
I can't believe you would get, well, I guess there's a lot of criticism to go around, it seems, but I can't believe someone would criticize being conservative when it comes to trying to save money for the city. It just seems like that's a good idea.
Well, I don't know that it's, I don't know that their criticism comes from, it won't hurt for you to take money out of the reserves to fix this problem, whatever problem that they feel is the most important. If it's transportation issue, if it's a parks issue, if, whatever, why can't you just take money out of reserves and fix these things?
Valid question, but also your point about the bond rating makes complete sense. We're saving so much money by having those reserves.
But a lot of people just don't have that information. Or may not be interested.
Probably not interested. Could we just bond out some of these problems that we've discussed today? Can't we just take out a big bond and put the 1915 trolley network across the city?
There you go. We have when the interest rates were so low, we bonded a great deal at that time because it was almost to the point of free money then. And we utilized for building our city center at Hannah, which is spectacular. Marcel Maslowski was the architect on that. And I tell you, that is one of the most beautiful buildings in the city of Tampa. And so we have bonded a number of large projects in the city. Our pipes, we're continuing to bond along there to strengthen our infrastructure. Looking at the park in East Tampa, we're going to bond that. We're going to have to bond the expansion of the streetcar as well. The West Riverwalk, we will have to, at this point, provide $26 million towards that Riverwalk. But we're going to continue to look for grant funding. We've received $25 million in grants to build the West Riverwalk, and we can continue to look for that grant funding. So we feel that we will reduce, if not eliminate, the need for that bonding.
Is that federal money? Those
federal
grants?
Money. We have received over $200 million in grant funding in this administration since 2019.
Talk about free money. I guess nothing's free, but man, federal money. That's fantastic.
I'm telling you, and we
Can you pull that up, Tyler, by the way, real quick? Just the some of the grant money that's came to our city is unbelievable. Palmetto Beach, they're going to have like a Bayshore Boulevard type Riverwalk thing over there, aren't they?
Yep. Well, we're redoing the seawalk there and looking at the sustainability resiliency issues, redoing the roadway along it. That is, you used to be able to say that it was sort of a hidden jewel, but people have definitely discovered Palmetto Beach. $25 million for that, $25 million for our safe streets that we're doing a lot of the quick builds with, focusing on Vision Zero, trying to reduce our fatalities and injuries out there on our streets.
So this is in relation to Vision Zero. City of Tampa will receive $20 million in federal grant money to improve roads and its high injury network. So that's basically $20 million from the feds to make our roads safer.
Right.
I mean, 200+ million. That's insane.
When you look at the historic in our budget presentation and you look at the graph of grants that we have received, it just goes up like a rocket in 2019.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. And Representative Kathy Castor has done an incredible job.
Kudos to her.
With bringing money to our city.
I've said this on the show before. If I was in a position like hers or yours or at any local level of government, I would be best friends with the federal representation.
Right.
I'd be like, "What's up, Joe? Let's get some of that federal money down here, man.
Yes.
It's so important. We
Right.
just, as a city, we can't afford to pay for all this stuff on our own. It's just the reality."
That is so true. And the Biden administration they really have their administration is in touch with the local municipalities. When I go to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, you always have the Secretary of Transportation, of Labor, of Housing. They are all there, hands-on, having one-on-one conversations with you, what your needs are in your community. And we have been very, very fortunate to be the recipients. But also, I have to commend our staff too, because you have to have what we refer to as shovel-ready projects. And we have that. We have an incredible planning staff, and each of our administrative groups have their projects ready. They have budgets, they have plans, and they're ready to go with the projects and all of the data needed to successfully sell those projects and to bring that grant funding home.
Yeah, because a big part of getting those federal grants is being prepared to receive them, right? You can't just go and say, "Hey, we need money for this." No,
Right.
they want to see that the local government's made an effort,
Right.
whether it's planning or some maybe city funding to match the federal funding.
Yeah.
Like what
And that you're going to be successful with it. You would be surprised at how many municipalities and counties give grant funding back because they didn't have the ability to, sort of bit off more than they could chew.
That's kind of a scary thought. What a shame, right?
It is.
I mean, we should be prepared to take every dollar we could get to fund all this stuff.
And we are.
Yeah. On kind of that note, I kind of lost my train of thought. Shoot, whatever, we can move on. I don't have much more time with you, so I had a couple questions that I wrote up. I did want to talk though before we move on. You mentioned the planning department. We had Stephen Benson on the show. He was our director of city planning. He's resigned. We did talk a little bit about permitting and efficiencies and how that's super important at a critical time when our city's growing the most. How much of that, I mean, we've talked about a lot of stuff today. How important is that part of it? The efficiency of permitting, maybe getting a new city planner. I don't know if that's in the works. Organizing that part of the city government.
Well, it's very, very important to have a qualified, energetic, innovative team. And we have that at the city of Tampa. And individuals, we will hire quite often very young, bright individuals that may not have that long-term experience, and they come to the city and they really lift us up and lift our city up and move it forward. And then, unfortunately, they will quite often go off to their next phase, whether it's consulting or some other private entity. And so we are always making sure that we have a very strong, deep bench. So if individuals on our team do decide to go off to that next phase in their career, that we have someone ready, trained, qualified to step right into that position. That, and then also making sure that you have that salary and benefit package that will attract individuals. You can only go so far with government. I mean, we're never going to be able to match private industry, but you do have to be competitive
For sure.
in those areas. And we are here in the city of Tampa. And then you just have to have that team that people are paying attention to. Like, hey, I want to be a part of that group. Look at what they're doing in mobility. Look at what they're doing in development. And they want to come here and they want to work for us. And we've been very, very fortunate in that way. And sometimes, someone will go off to that next chapter and you never want to stand in anyone's way. And so, especially in their growth, their professional growth. But, you're like, damn, that will never get anybody to replace them. And we always do. We always do. And so we do have people that leave the city, but we don't miss a beat. We continue on because we have the strong bench, or we are that attractive place nationally that people want to come and be a part of the growth of Tampa.
Yeah, you're asking a lot of an individual to work for the government. There's going to be news articles written about you. There's going to be a target on your back, so to speak. You're probably not going to make as much as you would in the private sector. You have to really want to do it. You have to be passionate about it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I speak at every police hiring and fire as well. And I tell all of our new officers and all of our new firefighters, I say, on this day, to a degree, you are losing your individuality. Because in the police department, you represent over 1,000 other men and women that wear that uniform proudly. And so your actions reflect positively or negatively on 1,000 other men and women.
That's so true, because a police officer is seen as one and the same. Mm-hmm. When you interact with Tampa PD, you don't know their name is Joe or John or whatever. Right. You just see that uniform, and that's Tampa PD. Right. So they really do lose. That's an interesting.
And everything they do is in the spotlight.
Right.
Everything.
Especially today. Mm-hmm. I did want to talk about government specifically. The mayor's office, city council, what exactly are the two entities? What's the relationship between the two? How does that work?
So our form of government, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Really, there are two forms where you'll have a strong mayor and then you'll have a city mayor. Some people call that the weak mayor form, where the mayor is either a part of city council or just more of a relational position. Ours is a strong mayor form of government. St. Pete has strong mayor, Clearwater's city manager, Miami's city manager, Orlando's strong mayor, Buddy Dyer, but Buddy Dyer has no term limits and he chairs city council. So I call him King Buddy.
The king of Orlando, yeah.
I refer to him. So our form of government, I feel, is the best. It's served our community very well. So you have strong mayor form of government where the mayor runs the administration, sort of like, if you want to say, the executive branch compared to the legislative branch. Okay. And then city council is elected 7 members, 4 districts, and 3 citywide. And their responsibility basically is land use, zoning, and ordinances, or the laws of our community. Now, they have veto power over my decisions, and I have veto power over their decisions. So you have that balance of power, and it's not all heavily weighted in one area.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And historically, we've always had, great relationships. Our administration, we have gotten through probably 95 or more % of our initiatives that have gone before city council. And one of the things I say about city council is that I don't have to sit up there on the dais in front of every Thursday where people are coming up and in some cases, yelling at you and those types of things. So I feel for them in that way. But it's a good form of government, and it's worked well for our city.
Do you think that is there anything that you wanted to do when you were thinking about running for mayor or when you became the mayor that you either couldn't do because of roadblocks, red tape? We kind of talked about offered transportation and stuff like that. Is there something you wish you could have done but you weren't able to do?
No, I wouldn't. I would just say I wouldn't cast it in that light. I would say more things, elements that were a surprise. One was how slow things move in government. When you come from law enforcement, you go to a call, you get thrown a set of facts, you make a decision, right or wrong, and you move on. And I tell people, then I met mobility, transportation. But those solutions take the longest, and for the right reasons. You can't make mistakes when you're building roads or putting in streetcars, those types of things. And so that I believe that I have accelerated processes, and the team has slowed me down, rightfully so, in ways too. So I think that was a good balance. And secondly, this probably will sound very naive, but one of the big surprises for me was the degree of politics involved. I'm just a solutions-oriented person. You come in, identify the problem,
Right.
identify the solution, and then get it done. And, without thinking about being reelected or those. So that I feel is a very freeing position for me to be in, because I don't have to worry about being reelected to the position.
Yeah.
So I tell people I simplify my life by doing the right thing for the right reason.
What did you kind of get a sense of that beginning your second term, where it was like, hey, now I don't have to worry about politics?
I pretty much felt that way coming in.
Good.
And I no doubt had an advantage of having served 31 years at the police department. And on the campaign trail, I would say people have had the ability to test drive me. I've been in the public light for 31 years, so you know what you're getting when you cast a vote for me.
And you kind of knew the inner workings of how the city government worked. I wonder, someone coming in that has not been in any form of government, like, they must be completely shocked in those first few months, because what we've talked about today is so much stuff. You're spitting out facts about, this new type of water system, and that we need to get this, system for the pipes. And it's like, how the heck can you keep up with all of this stuff? I guess it's these people sitting over here, right?
It is. And that's a great point to make, because it's all about the team.
Yeah.
It's all about surrounding yourself with people that probably could do the job better than you do that. And I realized that as the chief of police. So I was assistant chief of operations for 5 years. And so when I was named chief of police, I'm like, I've got this. I had been mentored by Steve Hogue for more than 5 years, but I had it down. But when you sit in that chair and you're it, you have no idea. One of the lessons I learned immediately was that now you belong to the community. Like, there's no trip to Home Depot or Walmart as Jane. You're there as the mayor, and people stop you and have conversations, which is great, but you don't have time to get down into the weeds of every element of that organization, whether it's the police department or the city. And so you've got to surround yourself with great people and let them do their jobs. And so I spent about the first 6 months putting together what I feel is the best administration the city's seen. I mean, some incredible individuals. And there was a lot of gnashing of teeth and people like, oh my gosh, and all stressed out. I'm like, just take a deep breath. This is all going to work out. And so that was something that I was very fortunate to have had that experience and bring that into the mayor's office. And then also just having the experience of being a part of the city. But I'll tell you too, I thought I knew a lot more than I did.
Right. Yeah.
When you walk in, I can't imagine somebody having never dealt with the city or a government entity in their life and coming in as the head of that organization or that group.
And then imagine at the state level and the national level. On politics, real quick, there's so much negativity with the federal election, and this election cycle has been horrible. It's just for so many reasons disappointing, especially for young people. Do you think that because of that, more people will focus on local government? We need more voters. I mean, it's like our voter turnout is so low locally. We need more people engaged in this local process.
Right.
You think it'll help in like a weird way because the election's just
Yeah,
so...
I don't know. It's people get involved when there's a personal effect on them. I mean, you have people that are the super voters that are going to vote no matter what it is. But, people are busy with their day-to-day lives and they don't understand the impact of their vote. And it never ceases to amaze and sadden me that people don't exercise their right to vote, especially when you think historically people have given their lives for that right.
Mm-hmm.
But to see that division and that partisanship all the way down to the school boards.
I know.
I feel I'm the ultimate eternal optimist, and I think that things will get much better. But we do just need to focus on the issues. And I don't have any problem, as you know, our elections are nonpartisan.
Right.
And people quite often have say, what party do you belong to? And I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm working for the community. And some of the old sayings, potholes aren't red or blue, they're just potholes. And that's what people in our community want, is they want somebody that's going to address their needs and the needs of our community.
You have 3 years left in office?
2027.
2027. And then you're out, and then there'll be a new mayor. What do you hope the new mayor accomplishes? 3 years is not a long time.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hope they carry on?
I hope that the next administration continues on this successful path that our city has been on for really decades now. And this, as I said before, I ran for this position because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Tampa. We're going to grow. We're going to continue to grow. But is that growth going to be successful? Like, do we want to ensure that we are growing into that city that we all know Tampa can be? And growth just for the sake of growth doesn't spell success. And so we have to pay attention to all of those issues, our transportation needs, our housing needs, making sure that we're continuing to diversify our economic portfolio, bringing the right groups, the right businesses into our city. And also, as we grow into a dynamic urban city that people want to move to, that we don't lose our identity. That is critically important.
Yeah.
Our history is what makes Tampa great, that diversity and the way that we embrace it, our history, our culture, our diversity. So we have to maintain that as we grow. I'll give you a great example of that real quick. West Tampa. I started getting complaints, a lot of people moving into Tampa from around the nation. Started getting a lot of complaints in football season about the parking over in West Tampa. People saying, hey, people are parking people in their yards. They're parking them on their sidewalks. I'm like, look, you just moved here. You need to get used to West Tampa.
That's exactly
it's
right.
It's actually in our contract with the stadium for West Tampa that they have the ability to park cars during stadium events so that they can utilize that as a revenue source. Yeah, so it's a benefit to the community because they have to put up with this public facility in their backyard.
I saw one guy who was cooking hot dogs in his front yard, making money, selling park. It was like, damn, this guy's got it going on over here.
Right. So those are the kind of things, we could all talk about 1,000 different historical elements of Tampa that we need to make sure continue.
Well, that's why I really started the show. There were so many people moving here. I didn't want the story of Cigar City to be lost.
Right.
My family coming here in the 1800s. That's my great-great-grandmother's cigar rolling equipment right there that my dad gave me. I mean, those are very unique stories that if are lost, we lose our identity. Right. And there's a lot of people moving here that need to know those stories.
Yes. No doubt.
Well, listen, this has been really fun.
It has.
Nice
Thank
to meet you.
I
Thanks
appreciate
for doing
it.
the show. Thanks for being here.
All right. My pleasure. This was very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to have you back on at some point.
Yeah. I'll have to think of something else to say, right?
Well, let's get this tax pass first, right?
Yeah, let's do.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Jane, again. All right. See you next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you guys for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like it. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Give us a comment. Give us some feedback. We want to know how we're doing. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.